What did you make of the lack of military response, but the sanction response still strong?
Well, I think it underscores the degree to which the president does not want to see a military conflict erupt inside of the Middle East, but that he has not really changed the bottom line policy of the United States, which is this idea of maximum pressure that is somehow going to deliver an Iran that's more compliant to U.S. demands. And I think that ultimately the United States hasn't shifted policy. It doesn't matter that John Bolton's out of office or not out of office. This ultimately is where the United States simply is.
Energy Aspects had a really great note out that talked about the lack of response. They said if there's no military response to the attack, Iran might gain the upper hand in an intensifying struggle between the key regional players. It may also allow Russia to increase its regional influence and reach. Those don't sound like good things.
No.
How do you walk this forward in terms of the regional politics?
Well, I think, ultimately there's a lot of truth there. The Iranians don't just have this one incident to look back on. They also have the tanker incidents of earlier in the summer. They have the drone incident earlier in the summer. And I think the Iranians have taken a lot of signals that this president is unwilling to take that next step. And so therefore they have a lot of room in which they can use their policy instruments. And the Iranians have asymmetric abilities to affect the United States and our partners. And we see this with regard to attacks on oil infrastructure. We see this with regard to terrorist attacks. I don't see there's any reason why the Iranians will change their approach based on the fact they don't think this president is going to respond decisively, only through sanctions.
Right. That's what confuses me in terms of the oil market response, in terms of where the tightness is. And specifically, I wind up looking at the Brent-Dubai spread. It's in essence light versus heavy. Yeah, okay, there may be sort of a shrinking there, but not the kind of premium you would think based on the scenario you describe.
Yeah, you're not the only one. I have been very surprised to the degree to which the market simply isn't pricing in the likelihood of accidental conflict and an escalation that might be unintended but still isn't inevitable. And I think the fact the market's also not recognizing the tightness that's due to Venezuela sanctions, that's due to things like the Abqaiq attack. So ultimately, I think this comes down to other factors and the fact that demand is down and the fact that the global economy is looking like it might start to stutter a little bit, and that might be a reason why. But I think ultimately there is just simply a sense that things won't get that bad since nobody wants a war. That doesn't mean we can't have one.
Fair enough. What does Iran do next?
Well, I think the Iranians have already announced that they're going to continue to expand their nuclear program and walk out of their nuclear commitments, which means that we've got a nuclear crisis that's slowly coming along as we also have got a potential regional crisis with additional attacks, additional provocations, additional attempts to interfere with oil coming out of Saudi Arabia and coming through the Straits of Hormuz. And so I think all of those things are still going to be what the Iranians are doing. Until they see a change in U.S. policy, that is how they're going to respond.
Meanwhile, are the Saudis pumping like they say they're pumping?
Well, I think that they probably aren't. And I think that the amount of damage that was actually done to the facility is probably much greater than they're letting on. It certainly seems to me that it's probably more consistent with initial estimates, which were that the damage was pretty extensive and that the production was going to be offline for quite some time. I think obviously the Saudis have got a real market interest in trying to say everything's fine, don't worry here.